Hi guys! Today I'm going to be making a video about me making an Edwardian style dress. The types of dresses you see in Pride and Prejudice with a high waistline. I'm doing this today because I'm super bored and I thought I might make a video about it, bring you guys around with me to see the process. I haven't sewed in a very long time, which might be an issue, but we'll see once we get started. We might cry, but we're trying to get most of it done today, which fingers crossed we will, because I have nothing else to do. So if I'm not making the dress, then what am I doing? First I have to pick my fabric, but I've just moved back from uni, so all my stuff is in suitcases. So I'm going to have to rummage through there first. But all here. So of a mess, but hopefully we'll find a good one. So it appears that most of my fabric is all white, and this fabric here I'm saving for a different project, but this fabric's really nice. But I'm thinking I might use this one since there's a lot of fabric there and it looks quite cute. So for this dress I'm not yet decided if I'm using a lining or not, so I'll have to check the other fabrics to see. Okay, so what I think I've decided to do is we're using this fabric for the main piece, for the outer fabric, and then for the lining I'll use this on the bodice, and then maybe a little shorter skirt, but I don't have much of this fabric. But in the outer fabric it has holes in it, so it might be a bit see-through, so it might be a bit too scandalous to have without a lining at the top and around the lower regions. But that sounds like a good plan to me. Next I will start cutting out the pieces. I'm following a pattern from Pinterest, so it's not very reliable. I'm just gonna je ne sais quoi, so hope you enjoy. So now I've cut out the pieces for the bodice. I'm not sure if I'm gonna do sleeves or not, so I haven't done them yet, but this is the bodice so far. Now that I've pinned the pattern pieces to the fabric, I'm gonna cut it out. So now that I've cut out the outer pieces, I'm now gonna line this up with the lining fabric and then cut out the same shapes. Okay, now that I've done all the pieces with the lining and the outer fabric, I'm going to unpin them and then sew right sides together along the edges and then fold them inside out, so that we'll have a nice lined fabric pieces to start with, and then we can get on to sewing them together. So after sewing the first piece right sides together, I've realised that now there's no seam allowance, because if I compare it to the original pattern piece, it's kind of almost smaller than the pattern piece. So I'm gonna unpick this and then I'll just sew the outer layer and the inner layer separately and then sew them together once they're both finished. So now I have the lining all stitched together, and then I also have the outer fabric all stitched together. Now I'm gonna get the iron and iron down these stitches so they're nice and crisp on the outside. And yes, so I've now put right sides together and I've decided I'm going to leave the bottom, I'm not going to sew there, so that I can turn it inside out, and then the skirt will attach there, so it's fine to leave it raw. And then I'm also going to leave out the tops of the shoulders so that they're easier to attach and adjust later. So I've just turned it inside out after sewing it together. I need to press it, but I've just put some pins in to see what it looks like. This is meant to look big because I'm going to ruche it up so that will be tight. I think the sleeves will have to be a bit shorter, but I think next on the agenda is to ruche or gather this bit on the bottom, but I'm not sure whether I should gather the whole of the bottom or just the same width as here. This is the back. It will probably look a bit odd right now, but I'm going to have to figure out a way to fasten that. I might just later and sew in like a string to just do like a little bow with the leftover fabric from earlier, and I'm sure there'll be more fabric left over when I cut out the skirt pieces. So now I've just sewn in 2 lines of thread. I haven't tied knots on this side, and I've done the same at the bottom here. This is so that you can ruche it, and then on the back I just tied them in a knot, and then I can cut them away. And then I'm going to try and pull this to ruche it, and then hopefully the top will decrease in size and then it will actually fit. So I've now managed to ruche it by pulling on the front threads, and then I've just adjusted it so that it fits when the back pieces are next to each other. And then next I'm going to sew along here so that it stays in shape. I might leave the top for now, but I'm going to sew at the bottom because that's not going to change. After sewing in the gathering, I've now made 2 little ties for the back so that it can be tied on and off easily using just the excess thread and the matching fabric. And then next I'm going to pin in the arms and then sew them together, and then that will be the bodice done. Hi, so it's the next day. The reason why I stopped last night is because the spoolie thing, it ran out of thread, so I stopped quite early last night, around like 8 PM, also hadn't had dinner, so I'm gonna show you how I fill that back up, and then we'll get on to sewing the sleeves together, and then we'll have a completed bodice. So now I'm just gonna take these sleeves and I pin them as on, but in order to sew them they need to be the other way around. So I'm gonna try it and align them so that they're right sides together, and then I'll just put them through the sewing machine. So I'm just tried on the project so far, and the sleeves look like they're a good length. This is what it looks like from the back. I can't tie the top because my arms aren't long enough, but seems alright. Apart from this sleeve, it's really annoying me because you can see that there's a gap there, whereas on the other side it's more plush with the body. So I don't know whether to just adjust the arm strap, but I'm thinking of adding in a sneaky little dot around here because I'm not sure what else there is to do. I think a dot is needed. Just a small one there, so I'll pin that up now and try to sew that in, and hopefully it will look nice and plush on both sleeves, I guess. Alright, so I've pinned in place, or I put the mini dot. I'll only make it small, so, and hopefully it'll look fine because it's already a ruched fabric. So I've now pressed down the sleeves. You can't really see, it's too bright, but I've pressed the sleeves down, so now that they're flat here on the inner side, and then I'm just gonna sew some stitches along so that it stays down. And then I also inserted a little dot, which you can see there. This project's taking me a lot longer than I was planning to. I think it's because my sewing machine, it keeps snapping the thread, but I don't really know why, and that's really annoying me. So if anyone has any advice on how to fix that, that would be very helpful. So this should now be the completed bodice. I just completed the sleeves, and they're very plush now. And then this is the back. I can't tie a bow at the top one because I need some help with that. But this is the completed bodice. So next I'm going to work on cutting out the fabric pieces for the skirt section, and then stitch them together, and then eventually attach them to the dress. Right, so now I've got all three pattern pieces cut out, and next all is to do is sew them together along the seams and then gather them all in at the waistline and then attach them to the bodice. It's very long. I've just been following the measurements on the pattern and it's so long. I'm gonna have a trail, I think, but I can always shorten that if I want to. But it feels so weird to be finally done cutting the fabric. It feels so wasteful whenever I cut out new sections. I'm just thinking, oh, the leftovers, what will I do with them? But I'll find something to do with them. They can be for my next projects because I really love this fabric. It's really pretty, I think. So this is the back of the skirt. And in the pattern piece, this was in 2 pieces, but I decided to do it along a fold to save thread. But in order for the dress to actually be able to put on, I need to make a hole here, like a little slit. So the way I'm doing this is I'm attaching this piece of fabric here and then cutting it out. And then this will go inside out. And then this is the right side, so then it'll look pretty. So now that I've sewn it along, I'm going to try and snip this open, which is a bit daunting, but it has to be done. Very gently chop this down. And now you should be able to turn this through the fabric. And then put the bit hectic in the corner there. But now I just need to press these down and then it should look good. And then when this attaches to the top of the bodice, the back of it here will attach onto this. So then you can just use the ties on the bodice that you already have. And then that's how you fasten it on. I've now ruched the top edge of the skirt where the waistband is, and then I've just pinned in the top, the bodice to the skirt section, and now I'm going to sew it together and hopefully that will be the dress almost done. So I've now attached the skirt section. The hole is quite gapey, but this tie manages to cover it quite well, I think. Now all left to do is do the hem. This dress is very long. I'll show you after I've hemmed it. So this is the finished dress. I really like it, I'm really proud of it. As you can see, I finished the hem. The length is really long and I think I might shorten it, but I definitely recommend that you guys try this at home, and thank you so much for watching this video. It's my first ever YouTube video, so please like it and share it with your friends.